Hello. Today on Let's Cure My Brain Rot series, I'm going to read a very, very short story. Now, why am I going to do that? Number one, right? Reading is supposed to antidote lack of focus, right? So we love that, right? Charlotte's lost her lack of focus, reading, helping her do that. Number two, short stories feel very, very doable. You know what I mean? Like, it's not War and Peace by Tolstoy that's like 5 times bigger than this book, okay? It's much more doable. So we can put the book down after doing the short story and being like, I read today, okay? I fixed my brain rot with 15-20 minutes of reading. I didn't scroll. I read straight through to the end. I did it with Charlotte, who didn't even put fancy video editing in there to trap and hack my dopamine, okay? We're just going to read straight through. I might make some mistakes because of that, okay? But I don't care, because I'm here to fix my brain rot and to help you fix your brain rot with me, okay? So who are we going to read today? There are so many great short story writers, so many. But I thought we could start with Chekhov, okay? One, why are we starting with Chekhov? Okay, first question. Well, he's an excellent short story writer. He uses deceptively simple prose as well, so it's quite easy to follow if you're not used to reading a lot of literature. He's a classic writer who you can get into really easily. We love that. We're going to read a little joke, okay? I'm going to give you a super duper brief summary before we get in of the main kind of plot point, okay? Basically, man, woman, going down a sled. One of them says something to the other and they can't quite make out what they, like, whether they actually said that thing or not. Okay, that's the plot point, okay, the main complication. And you might be going, Charlotte, that sounds really boring. Okay, I'm used to scrolling every 2 seconds and getting a little dopamine hit, or I'm used to action movies. How am I going to be engaged by that? Don't worry, my friend, is what I respond with. Don't worry. Chekhov keeps us very entertained. So we're going to read this one in full. I'd like to apologize in advance for my pronunciation of the female Russian name in this story, because I'm 130,000% sure I'm going to get it wrong. Okay, so apologies. Okay, sometimes she's called Nadia, other times she's called Nadenka. Okay, other times she's called Nadezhda. Okay, and I think from my very vague understanding of Russian names, I think that means sometimes it's like a cutesy or like very personable way of calling somebody something. It's kind of like I called myself Shah or Lottie or something like that. That's essentially the equivalent. Any Russian listeners watching this, if any of you are, please correct me in the comments. Happy to receive severe criticism for that. You're welcome. So without further ado, let's read this really beautiful short story. A Little Joke by Chekhov. A bright winter noon. The air is bitter cold, and Nadenka, who holds on to my arm, has silvery frost all over the curls at her temples and down on her upper lip. We are standing on a high hill. From our feet to the very bottom stretches a slope, in which the sun looks as if into a mirror. Beside us stands a small sled upholstered in bright red flannel. Let's slide down, Nadenka, I beg of her. Just once, I promise you, all will make it in one piece. But Nadenka is afraid. The space from her small galoshes to the foot of the icy hill seems to her like a terrible bottomless abyss. Her heart sinks and her breath stops when she looks down, where I merely suggest getting on into the sled. What will happen if she risks plunging into the abyss? She'll die. She'll go out of her own mind. I beg you, I say. You shouldn't be afraid. You know that's just cowardice, faint-heartedness. Nadenka finally gives in, but I can see by her face that she gives in with fear for her life. I seat her, pale and trembling, in the sled, put my arms around her, and together with her fling myself into the abyss. The sled flies like a bullet. As we cut through the air, it hits our faces, roars, whistles in our ears, rips, pinches painfully in anger, wants to tear our heads from our shoulders. It pushes so that it's hard to breathe. It seems like the devil himself is grabbing us within his paws, roaring and dragging us into hell. The separate things around us merge into one long, swiftly running strip. Another moment, and it seems we'll perish. I love you, Nadia, I say in a voice. The sled gradually slows down. The roaring of the wind and the swishing of the runners are not as frightening now. The heart stops sinking, and we are finally at the bottom. Nadenka is more dead than alive. She's pale, barely able to breathe. I help her to stand up. I wouldn't do that again for anything, she says, looking at me, her wide open eyes filled with terror. Not for anything in the world. I nearly died. A little later she recovers and is now peeking questioningly into my eye. Did I say those 4 words, or had she just imagined hearing them in the noise of the wind? I stand beside her, smoking and attentively studying my glove. She leans on my arm, and we walk for a long time around the foot of the hill. The riddle obviously troubles her. Were those words spoken or not? Yes or no? Yes or no? It's a question of pride, honor, life, happiness, a very important question, the most important in the world. Nadenka looks into my face impatiently, sadly, with searching eyes, answers me at random, waits for me to speak. Oh, what play on that sweet face, what play! I see she's struggling with herself. She needs to say something, to ask something, but she can't find the words. She feels awkward, frightened, hindered by joy. You know what? She says, not looking at me. What? I ask. Let's slide down. Again. We climb the steps up the hill. Again I seat the pale, trembling Nadenka in the sled. Again we go flying into the terrible abyss. Again the wind roars and the runners swish. And again, at the swiftest and noisiest moment, I say in a low voice, I love you, Nadenka. When the sled stops, Nadenka looks back at the hill we only just slid down, then peers into my face for a long time, listens to my voice, indifferent and passionless, and her whole little figure, all of it, even her muff and bashlik, expresses extreme perplexity. And written on her face is, what's happening? Who said those words? Was it him? Or did it only seem so? This uncertainty troubles her. She's losing patience. The poor girl doesn't answer my questions, frowns, and is about to burst into tears. Shouldn't I take you home? I ask. I like this sledding, she says, blushing. Can we do it one more time? She likes it, and yet, as she gets into the sled, as on the previous occasions, she's pale, trembling, barely able to breathe from fear. We go down a 3rd time, and I see how she looks me in the face, watches my lips, but I hold a handkerchief to my lips, cough, and when we're halfway down the hill, I manage to bring out, I love you, Nadia. And the riddle remains a riddle. Nadenka is silent, She's thinking about something. I take her home from the sliding hill. She tries to walk slowly and keeps waiting for me to say those words. And I see how her soul suffers, how she tries to keep herself from saying, "It can't be that the wind said it, and I don't want it to be the wind that said it." The next morning, I receive a note. "If you go to the sliding hill today, come for me. N." From that day on, Nadenka and I go to the sliding hill every day, and each time, flying down on the sled, I say the same words in a low voice. "I love you, Nadia." Soon, Nadenka gets used to this phrase, as to wine or morphine. She can't live without it. True, to go flying down the hill is as frightening as before, but now fear and danger lend a special allure to the words of love. Words that constitute as much of a riddle as before and torment her soul. The suspects are the same too, myself and the wind. Which of the two has declared his love for her, she doesn't know, but apparently it makes no difference to her. Whichever vessel she drinks from makes no difference to her, so long as she gets drunk. Once at noon, I went to the sliding hill alone, mixing with the crowd. I saw Nadenka going down the hill. Saw her searching for me with her eyes. Then she timidly goes up the steps. It's scary to go alone. Oh, how scary. She's pale as the snow, trembling as if she were going to her execution. But she's going resolutely without looking back. She has obviously decided, finally, to try it. Will she hear those amazing, sweet words when I'm not there? I see how pale, mouth open in terror, she climbs into the sled, closes her eyes, and, bidding farewell to the world forever, sets off. Swish, swish the runners. Whether Nadenka hears those words, I don't know. I only see how she gets out of the sled, exhausted, weak. And it's clear from her face that she herself doesn't know whether she heard anything or not. Fear as she was sliding down robbed her of the ability to hear, to distinguish sounds, to understand. But now comes the spring month of March. The sun turns gentler, our ice hills grow darker, loses its sheen, and finally melts. We stop sledding. Poor Nadenka can't hear those words anywhere now, nor is there any one to speak them. For there's no wind to be heard, and I am preparing to go to St. Petersburg. For a long time, probably, forever. Once, a day or two before my departure, in the evening, I'm sitting in the garden, which is prepared for me, separated from the yard where Nadenka lives by a high, snail-studded fence. It is still rather cold. There is still snow under the dung heap. The trees are dead, but there is already the smell of spring, and the rooks make a big racket settling for the night. I go up to the fence and look through the crack for a long time. I see Nadenka come out to the porch and fix a sad, anguished gaze on the sky. The spring wind blows directly into her pale, mournful face. It reminds her of the wind that roared for us then on the hill, when she heard those 4 words, and her face turns sad, sad. A tear trickles down her cheek, and the poor girl raises her hands up to that wind as if asking it to bring her those words one more time. And I, having waited for the wind, say in a low voice, "I love you, Nadia." My God, what happens to Nadenka? She cries out, her whole face bursts into a smile, and she reaches her hand up to the wind, joyful, happy, so beautiful. And I go to pack. That was already long ago. Now Nadenka is married. She married, or was married to, it makes no difference, the secretary of the nobility trusteeship, and now has 3 children. She has not forgotten how we went to the sliding hill, and how the wind brought her the words, "I love you, Nadenka." For her, it is now the happiest, the most touching and beautiful memory of her life. As for me, now that I'm older, I no longer understand why I said those words, why I was joking. And that's the end of the short story. So that one's from 1886. And I think, as we said before, excellently accessible prose, bar my two stumbles. Excellently accessible prose. So he is able to create the most wonderful landscape, not just through, you heard, repetition and very good detailed description of the hill, but it feels as if we're there looking through the peephole, through the persona, the male protagonist, and watching her think that the wind loves her, which is a lovely concept. But then at the end, we're kind of, questioning, okay, obviously he did it as a joke when he was younger, but he's thinking, oh, was that a good idea or not? And it's that uncertainty when we say that phrase. We've all had that experience before. When we say something as important as "I love you," sometimes people say it as a joke when they shouldn't. Sometimes people say it seriously but almost do it as a joke. And sometimes we deceive ourselves whether we even love somebody in the first place. Maybe we love some past trauma that person's personifying, or maybe we do love somebody but they're not what we're used to. Perhaps they're too wonderful or too perfect or too fabulous or whatever it is. So I hope that very brief exploration of the human spirit that remains ever present, even though that was 1886, it still very much applies now, prodded your brain rot just for a moment and made you think and feel, more importantly. Because words, when they're used correctly, can make you feel all sorts of things. And when you think about it, they'll only make you feel things if you understand them or understand the events that are triggering them. So if you felt as much as I did when I was reading that, that probably means you've had an experience that's similar, or you've at least felt those emotions before. And that is the magic of a very good writer. You don't need to scroll. You don't need to watch movies are great. You can watch some animated or enacted version, but sometimes even just reading the text or having the text read to you will help your brain self-reflect far more than anything else can. So that is today's dopamine reset. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you have any suggestions for short stories in the future, whether it's Poe's quite difficult. If you're going to do that, give me a specific one so I can practice. I didn't practice that one, I just read it, but I'll need to practice Poe. Or other fabulous ones like Le Guin or Shirley Jackson. She's wonderful as well. Put some suggestions down so we can beat this brain rot together.